Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material and unpack the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something a little different, the world of fiction. Specifically, excerpts from the novel A Reliable Wife by Robert Goolrick, published back in 2009. Our mission, really, is to explore the fascinating characters here, the unexpected plot twists, and the deep emotional stuff happening within these pages. We're looking for those aha moments, those surprising facts this story reveals about, well, human nature, deception, and that search for connection. Okay, let's unpack this. So the scene opens up in Wisconsin, fall 1907, and it's bitter cold, 4 o'clock, nothing moving really, just folks waiting at a train station.
And right away, we meet Ralph Truitt. He's clearly a man of means, wealth, power in this tiny town, used to being in control.
Right.
But right now, the source says he feels like a fool because this train he's waiting for, it's late.
He ordered punctuality.
Yeah.
And the source quickly hints at this deep history behind his need for control, these staggering losses, like 20 years before.
His wife, children, his hopes, these lavish fantasies he had, all gone.
And what followed was years of, well, hatred, rage, regret.
He's been using condescension as a defense, a shield. But there's this really powerful detail. He catches sight of his own face in a mirror.
Oh, right.
And he's genuinely shocked by what he sees, what the grief and that constant condescension have, done to him.
And it hits him. His face isn't hiding a thing. Everyone can see it. The inner turmoil, the anxious hope underneath. The source uses this amazing phrase, the terrifying stillness of his heart.
That stillness.
Yeah.
That emotional void, it's striking. And it makes his view of the townspeople almost chilling. He sees their ordinary tragedies.
The kids, unhappy marriages.
Right. Hidden sexual lives, death, madness, people burning houses down, violence. He sees it all. And he imagines their most intimate acts, birth and death, as this insane lace knitting the town together.
Wow. That's a detached way to see it. Almost clinical, isn't it? Viewing the shared human experience like that.
It is. And the physical description they give of him matches that internal decay. Ashen skin, lifeless hair, his mouth and eyes kind of pulled down by the grief and condescension.
Despair, it says, came like an infection. He's 54. Doesn't even know when hope left him.
So this is the guy, defined by all this past trauma, this present emptiness, just standing there waiting.
Waiting for someone specific.
Exactly. Someone who answered an advertisement he placed. He sent a telegram, wired money, sent a ticket. He's waiting for this woman, Catherine Land. And the source says he's been waiting a long time.
That long time with all that baggage, it really tells you how much he's pinning on this one arrival. Okay, so let's switch focus. Let's talk about Catherine. We meet her on the train coming from Chicago.
And her thoughts are interesting. They're on love and money, or more like how her life feels like nothing much, just nothing. And she can't believe it might actually end without her getting either.
She's haunted by this idea of the unpredictable middle of life, right? Like the fear that her plans could just collapse.
Yeah, before she gets where she thinks she's going. And she holds on to this one single memory from childhood.
The carriage ride.
The carriage ride, yeah. Civil War era. It's raining, but the sun's out. There's a rainbow. It's an incredible sunset. She's sitting between her mother and some soldier.
And she remembers feeling
Perfectly happy. That's the phrase. And she thinks it might be the last time she ever felt that way.
wow.
It's tied to these sensory things. Her mother's laugh, the sweet air. She doesn't even know who the men were or where they were headed.
Just that feeling.
Yeah.
And that single kind of perfect moment, it stands in such stark contrast to the life she described since then.
Totally.
Yeah.
Having bitten and bludgeoned her way through, angry, fighting, no love, no money. That one memory is the only piece of the past she lets herself revisit.
What does that tell you? That single preserved happy moment against everything else.
Well, it suggests maybe these profound early moments of peace or joy can become anchors, even when everything after is just brutal. It really highlights how much she's lacked that feeling since.
So how did they connect? Their correspondence started after she answered his, what was it, a terse announcement.
Yeah, it sounds like a coded ad for a wife, basically, promising a new beginning. And her answer was so simple, so direct. I am a simple, honest woman.
Which right there sets up the central deception, doesn't it?
Absolutely. His handwriting is described as blunt and compelling. Hers is practiced and elegant, and she hoped and seductive.
Performance from the start.
Completely. She sent a photograph. His letters got longer then, like the match was already decided in his mind.
But she holds back.
She feigned hesitation, it says, until he insisted and sent the ticket. It's a careful negotiation.
And her preparation for arriving, it's meticulous. She sews jewelry into her skirt hem.
Right, for insurance. She calls it her ticket out of the darkness, her independence, her past, all sewn into the hem.
Makes her own plain clothes, a simple dress, 13 buttons, no corset. Feels light, it says. And she's rehearsing memories.
Yeah, to erase the intricacies of where she'd really been, reinforcing that simple, honest woman facade she's built.
And she's surprised by the private railroad car. Suggests Ralph's wealth is maybe more than she even bargained for.
Exactly. All of this, it just shows this deep need she has to control her identity, her story, seeing this as a complete break.
Then the arrival itself. She steps off the train and boom, straight into this swirling blizzard.
Blinding, but also dazzling, it says. Everything blurs, edges disappear, and she's scared.
You feel like the storm is more than just weather here.
Oh, for sure. It mirrors the chaos and uncertainty she's stepping into, despite all her careful planning. She has this thought. There's nothing for them, except go on, huddle together, wait for spring,
Yeah.
and she just decides, okay, I'll do what I have to do.
And the meeting itself, at the station, it's stark. Ralph sees her, knows immediately.
Instantly. Whoever you are, you're not this woman. He calls her a liar right then and there, and he's troubled, wondering who's in that picture she sent.
That's a huge moment. Despite everything she did, he sees through the main lie about her appearance straight away.
It's critical. And he mentions his automobile, maybe trying to impress her or assert status, but she just feels lost in the wilderness, alone with barbarians.
And then almost immediately, disaster. The carriage ride.
The horses spook in the wind, bolt.
Ralph gets thrown, hits his head, falls under the carriage.
Yeah, it's bad. Catherine's terrified, just holding on as this carriage careens off the road. Chaos.
They end up at the Larsons' house, unexpectedly.
Very unexpectedly. And it surprises Catherine. It's trim, simple, bright. Not the squalor she might have imagined rural life to be.
And then you hear that gunshot.
Right. They shot the injured horse. Just a stark, brutal reminder of the realities of this place she's landed in.
So inside, they're tending to Ralph. He's in pain. Catherine insists he's not going to die.
And Mrs. Larson notices Catherine's torn skirt. Assumes she lost something valuable in the crash. Says it's gone till spring.
And Catherine realizes in that instant, her jewelry, her hidden stash, her escape route, it's gone, lost in the snow.
The physical loss just underscores this feeling of being trapped now.
Mm.
Her insurance is gone.
But then she reveals this unexpected skill. She stitches up Ralph's head wound herself.
Yeah. Cleans it, sees bone, uses iodine, all while Ralph is apparently crying like a baby.
And she lies about her father being a doctor. But her internal thought is pure pragmatism. How many ways can there be to sew a wound shut?
It tells you a lot about her, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That practical resilience. Probably learned the hard way.
She's also observing the house, noticing the strange mix of plain farm stuff and these incongruous, fine, rich pieces of furniture.
Hints of Ralph's wealth reaching even here. Maybe remnants of his past life scattered around.
And Mrs. Larson.
Yeah.
She is fiercely protective of Ralph.
Oh, yeah. Tells Catherine straight up he's been hurt before. Everybody ruined his life. Another warning.
If Catherine hurts him, Mrs. Larson will hurt Catherine. Chilling.
And Catherine lies. Says she won't hurt him. But her private thought, not yet.
So despite the accident, despite losing her escape money, the original scheme is still alive in her mind.
It seems so. She gets shown to a nice room, unpacks her pathetic, ugly dresses, thinking, these are her things, and I'm putting them away in my new home, establishing herself.
But then there's that detail, the small blue medicine bottle she hides in her suitcase.
Exactly. The core plan, the deception, it's still there, hidden away. She watches the snow, finds the cold, pleasant, bracing. Her life feels like someone else's, washes off Ralph's blood. The stage is set. The game's still on.
Okay, so as Ralph is recovering from this accident, the source gives us this deeper, really intense look into his past. Through fever dreams, memories.
Yeah, he's being held in women's arms in these dreams. His mother, his father is there, oddly. His dead brother, his wife Amelia, the children who are gone. He remembers the dark house of his childhood.
And this defining trauma emerges. Really vivid detail. When he was 8, his mother saw him steal a needle to pierce a butterfly.
And she doesn't yell. She calmly takes the needle, wipes it, and pierces the soft part of his hand with it. Scrapes the bone.
Oh my God. And her words, they're just brutal, tying it directly to religious fear.
That's what hell is like. But it's like that all the time. Forever.
He never spoke of it, never forgot, never forgave. His hand got infected, left a scar only he could see.
And he believed her. Knew she was right, that the pain of hell never heals. And from that exact moment, he hated God. It's not just a bad memory. It's like the literal scar showing how early judgment, especially tied up with religious intensity, can just poison your whole view of the world yourself.
Creating this lifelong split between, outward success and internal damnation.
Precisely. And that trauma connects directly to his later struggles. Lust and guilt. He felt his mother's Bible readings, knew his father and brother understood. The stories were really about man's hunger for woman, the serpent's venom.
Lust.
So lust became his sin, hell his home.
That's how he saw it. Perfect manners on the outside, but these painful longings inside. At 15, screaming muffled lust into his pillow, self-abuse, like 8 or 10 times a day.
And afterward, he'd feel his mother's needle again, that pain running from his groin upward. And the more it happened, the more he hated God. It directly links physical desire, guilt, religious trauma, all back to that childhood moment, his mother's judgment.
It's a powerful picture of how shame and desire can get so tangled up, especially when rooted in that kind of early condemnation.
He saw this stark contrast in himself. Virtues of the body being tall, strong, rich, that came easy, but virtues of the heart, unknown, knew he'd never have them.
Sitting in church thinking of naked women while his mother saw heaven.
Exactly. It builds this picture of a man who's just profoundly fractured. Outwardly successful, controlled, but inside. Consumed by guilt, desire, and hatred stemming from that core trauma. And his relationship with women. The source says it grew into a hatred that never really went away. Childhood was desire mixed with night.
Until he met Amelia at 16.
Yeah, she was exquisite. He was grossly in love. Stopped his bad habits for her. Took Italian lessons just to talk to her. Resolved, to be the man worthy of her.
But their marriage sounds grand, but empty. Like a stage set. He spent so much money on the house, importing incredible luxuries from Europe.
Marble stairs, fine china, Italian beds. Amelia was happy, but like a little dog, the source says.
It took 2 years to build it all, and when they finally moved in, he was so lost in it all he didn't even know where to sit, asked the maids where to sleep.
Yeah, and they rarely slept together. She had her own rooms. It just paints this picture of a relationship built on material stuff, not intimacy, right from the start.
And he was completely blind to her affair with the piano teacher, Antonio.
Who knew everything but didn't know that. Amelia, a countess, was happy, spending his money and seeing Antonio.
For years.
For years, since before their son was even born. Ralph describes seeing Antonio looking at home between my wife's naked legs. And then the devastating line. Everybody knew but me.
Wow. That level of public deception and his total ignorance, it really highlights his emotional isolation, maybe his self-absorption too.
And their son, named Andrew, but Amelia called him Antonio. After he was born, Amelia kept her distance, never touched Ralph, stayed up all night laughing at him with her friends. He put up with it for 6 years.
And his hatred then focuses on his own son.
Yeah, tragically. Saw him as a lying, scheming memento of Amelia. He admits later it wasn't fair, but he beat the boy, yelled at him, until Antonio just looked back at him with single hatred.
So the legacy gets passed down. The son gets the father's misdirected rage.
And the final breaking point. Their daughter, Franny, died of influenza. Ralph held her as she died.
And that same day.
He just walked out of that huge, lavish house, locked it, left everything behind, the furniture, the memories, all of it, and never went back.
Her death shattered whatever capacity he had left to endure the betrayal, the emptiness, the absolute end of that life for him. Okay, back to Wisconsin. Snowed in for 3 days. Catherine is bored, afraid she's losing her mind, but the plan is still active.
Definitely. She's turning that blue bottle in her hands, watching the blizzard. And crucially, the source notes, she prays Ralph won't die. Her plan needs him alive, at least for now.
That bottle, it keeps showing up. Reinforces that despite the crash, the lost jewelry, her core intention is still there, tucked away.
And she explores the house, touching things, calculating their worth, the furniture, the silver Limoges, Tiffany, Wedgwood. She's assessing the value of her target, essentially.
Her appetite, it says, is fueled by boredom and anxiety, another sign of the turmoil under that controlled surface.
And she reflects on her past life. The smoking, drinking, drugs, just grabbing things, grabbing people. Men wrote her letters. She found brief forgetfulness with them.
But it never lasted.
No. It was always followed by seeing the stupidity and the foul odors of the hatefulness of her own heart. She felt real pleasure was denied to her in those encounters, which is why she kept moving on.
It gives you a key insight into the emptiness driving her, doesn't it? Why is she seeking something totally different, maybe more stable here?
Exactly. And she craves those old vices,
Right.
Cigarettes, opium, morphine, but she maintains this rigid discipline, follows the plan, Won't even have sherry.
The plan demands sobriety, focus, such a contrast to the chaos she came from.
And you've still got Mrs. Larson there. A constant presence, a potential threat, fiercely protective of Ralph, still warning Catherine, if you hurt him, I'll hurt you.
Meanwhile, Catherine continues nursing Ralph,
Yeah.
spooning food, wiping sweat, bathing him with Mrs. Larson. She desperately wants a doctor, but they're snowbound.
And Larson thinks Catherine's as good as a doctor now after seeing her stitch Ralph up. That practical skill again, building this fragile, ironic trust.
And as he recovers, Ralph starts opening up to her,
Yeah.
sharing his past.
Yeah, tells her about his brother's death, Europe, the palaces, even the whorehouses. A life he calls entire, flawed, scarred, but brave. And she just listens.
That act of just listening, bearing witness without judging, it feels significant somehow.
It does. It's like a moment of genuine human connection happening inside this framework of massive deception.
So Ralph eventually recovers enough to send Catherine off to St. Louis. Her mission? Find his son, Antonio.
Right. He gives her a letter of credit, sets her up in a hotel, even hires Pinkerton agents Malloy and Fisk to help her out.
Which is fascinating because Ralph, consumed by his past and this desire to reconnect with his son, is putting immense trust in Catherine, who he already knows is a liar about her identity.
It speaks volumes about his desperation, maybe.
Yeah.
Or his loneliness. Meanwhile, Catherine's performance continues in St. Louis. She stays in an adequate room, but imagines grander ones. Prepares like an actress, copies others' manners, speaks kindly to the maids.
And she finds relief in living like this, like other people lived.
Yeah, which suggests maybe she's just weary of her own chaotic true self. She gets to briefly wear this conventional, respectable mask, and it feels easier.
And she finds herself thinking about Ralph, his simplicity, his trust, and maybe surprisingly, his body.
Not young, she notes, but richly scented, textured, and somehow familiar. She reflects that nights with him were something for him, a release, a homecoming.
And she was happy to have given that pleasure, recognizing the cost of solace, its rarity. What's that about? Is she developing empathy? Are her priorities shifting?
It suggests something's happening, doesn't it? Despite the scheme, there was a genuine, maybe limited, but real human exchange there. He's still a gate to where she wants to go, but she's pleased he isn't awful, like most men she's known.
And her plan starts to feel foggy.
Yeah. She knows the basic facts. She's his wife. He's rich. The goal is his wealth. But how to get there is becoming unclear. She even forgets sometimes she's working a scheme. The present reality with Ralph is genuinely starting to affect her, blurring that original sharp goal.
And then this new interest pops up, seemingly out of nowhere. Gardening.
Right. Spends afternoons in the library reading about plants, Italian gardens, gets obsessed with names, hellebores, roses, lilies.
Finds the technique of preparing soil more exciting than the flowers themselves. That's specific.
It is. She gets botanical illustrations, memorizes plant parts. It leads to this idea. Restore the walled secret garden back at the villa. Make it her own. A safe place. Giardino segreto.
She likes secrets.
She does. And this interest in creating something beautiful, something ordered. And such a huge departure from her destructive, grasping past. It feels like a potential internal shift, finding value in creation, connection to a place.
Meanwhile, the Pinkertons, Malloy and Fisk, they find Antonio.
They do. He's playing piano in a music hall, place frequented by ladies of the night, gamblers. Doesn't sing well, apparently. Traveled the country using different names, always ending up in seedy joints, whorehouses, opium dens.
How did the Pinkertons see him?
As a lost cause. His mother's creation. Overly refined, immoral, a pretty nothing. They think Truitt won't like him. Nobody would like him, they say.
But Catherine's reaction, it's visceral, immediate.
Completely. Feels music in her veins, heart pounding. Her focus snaps away from the gardens, straight onto Antonio.
The desire just redirects the whole plot. She's pacing her room, forgetting the plants, thinking only of Tony Moretti's body. Desire hits her like a drug. He's younger, her last adventure of her youth.
She pictures herself lying naked and wanton next to Tony Moretti, her husband's son. The original scheme for money is now tangled up, maybe dangerously so, with this powerful sexual draw to Antonio.
She finds his place, walks with the Pinkertons through nice streets, then into these low brownstones.
And it reminds her of the cramped, greasy, hard rooms she used to live in. But she feels removed now, in her fine clothes, like she's changed and can't change back.
That small detail really shows how her time with Ralph, even with all the lies, has shifted her perspective, makes her feel distant from her old self.
She meets Antonio on the third floor. He opens the door looking ravaged, but also pure, shining like a saint, wearing a red silk gown, naked underneath, totally unbothered.
Invites them in, but immediately starts denying everything.
Claims his name is Moretti. Doesn't know Ralph Truitt, never been to Wisconsin. Tells this whole crafted story about his life, conservatory, playing piano. Hates kids, he says.
And when Malloy insists Ralph is his father...
Antonio gets angry. Denies it again, vehemently. Calls Catherine's little country diamond ring pathetic. Dismisses Truitt as just some country bumpkin. He completely rejects that identity, that connection.
So back in St. Louis, Catherine's living in Antonio's rooms, which she sees as shabby and sad, despite the silks. And she has this key realization about Ralph.
Yeah, she sees him now as a sentimental fool. Thinks he couldn't possibly imagine her real desire or her desires for Antonio. She understands she's just the lure and instrument for Ralph's own desire to get his son back.
It shows she gets Ralph's blind spot. His longing for his son clouds his judgment about her. But it also highlights her complex position, right? Caught between these two men's desires.
Definitely. And she understands Antonio is tied to her for one reason only, Ralph's death and the inheritance. They've cooked up a shocking plot.
Antonio's plan for Ralph's death. The description is chilling.
It is. He'll feel pleasure, longing, then turn to poison, nightmares, blood thinning, cold, hair falling out, sickness, death. Antonio wants this specific, slow death. He calls it Catherine's gift to him.
And he demands she kill his father, says her love for him only gains value if she does it.
Exactly, and Catherine agrees. I'll do it. Won't wait too long. The scheme has just violently escalated. It's murder now, driven by Antonio's rage and her sudden, desperate entanglement with him.
But amidst this plotting, she has these moments of reflection. Seeing her nice dresses in a shabby room, longing for her old life, the laughter, sex, champagne, opium nights with women. She actually regrets seeing Ralph sad.
Yet she also washes Antonio's sex off her skin, luxuriating, regretting nothing. It's complex, isn't it? Nostalgia for the past, regret about this path, but also maybe a present fleeting pleasure or sense of power in her relationship with Antonio.
Their daily life sounds intense. Going to his place, making love 10 fierce minutes, dark to light, eating oysters, drinking champagne.
Antonio's charm makes her feel like a girl again. He tells endless stories. His laugh is like clear water. He tells her she's beautiful, and she believes him.
She falls back into old patterns, too, going to his music hall, flirting with other men, hitting opium dens.
But she knows his need for adoration isn't love. It's need and habit and addiction. She admits Antonio is younger, her last grasp at youth. This isn't real love. It's like a mutual addiction, fueled by their pasts in this scheme.
And Antonio's vision for the villa after Ralph's is gone. It's pure decadence and revenge.
Endless parties, more people, more money, women waiting on him. He wants to spit on his father's grave, bring people up by railroad car just to party, have sex with others while Catherine watches, sleep in his mother's bed, use drugs openly, laugh through town. It's all about reclaiming his inheritance and his mother's memory through excess and humiliating Ralph.
He feels his rage shows on his face, eats fancy food like oysters and champagne, seeing it as a caress from a woman long dead, has sex because he thinks he's beautiful, beauty's burden.
And in sex, he finds release. Forgets who he is, forgets Ralph beating him when he was 8, becomes pure movement, pleasure. His life is this sexual frenzy just to escape his trauma and rage, just to be able to sleep.
It reveals this incredibly deep wound driving him. His whole being is shaped by that perceived abandonment and abuse. His plan isn't just about money. It's about exerting ultimate control, finding this perverse pleasure in his father's destruction. But amidst all this darkness, there's this poignant detail about someone named Alice. Antonio tells Catherine about her, says she's in a place called Wildcat Chute, and the source notes, Antonio smiled.
That smile, it's laced with cruelty, isn't it? Suggests he knows how much Alice is suffering and maybe even enjoys it.
Catherine goes to find her, and Alice looks girlish, softer, but her skin is tight, looks like she's going to die.
And Catherine is just flooded with memories of their shared past, making dresses, homework, their dog, all lost, she thinks. It's heartbreaking.
Alice is living in this empty shanty she calls home. Trembling, feeling lazy, says she can't go with you too far. Just asks for money. Refuses Catherine's offer of doctors, a home.
It's a devastating picture of addiction's grip. Physically ruined, seemingly unable or unwilling to accept help, trapped.
And later, this character, Hattie Reno, offers a harsh, cynical take on Alice, calls her awful, a hag, nothing.
Hattie basically dismisses Catherine's attempt to save Alice as pathetic. Says it won't change the core situation. Catherine will still kill Ralph, still end up with Antonio and the money. It's a cutting judgment, showing how futile Catherine's impulse looks to someone else from her past.
But Catherine feels this desperate need to save Alice, bring her to Wisconsin, heal her, dress her in Amelia's fancy clothes, make Alice Catherine's masterpiece.
This desire feels different from her other motivations. It's described as a desperate, hard, unbreakable need to create some order out of the chaos of the past. It's not about money or sex here. It seems like this last-ditch effort for her own redemption, maybe? Saving her sister as a way to create beauty and order from the ruin of their shared history.
So Antonio returns to Wisconsin with Catherine. It's a bit unclear how that happens in these excerpts, but he's there, and his behavior at the villa is just insolence and boredom.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to notice Ralph's small insults or even Ralph's genuine attempts to connect. Ralph gives him a bank account, tries to get him interested in the business.
Sees Antonio's condescension, and it reminds Ralph of his own youth.
Exactly. Ralph recognizes Antonio isn't a fool, but he's also not to be moved. He understands on some level that Antonio had come to bring death.
Antonio complains constantly. The house is cold, his feet are freezing. Tells Ralph the trick is to change the environment to suit your clothes, not the other way around.
Meaning, you're rich, Ralph, do something. It's pure entitlement, demanding immediate gratification.
And he refuses to leave, won't go to Chicago or Europe.
Nope. Says it wouldn't be any fun, he'd get lost. His focus is laser sharp on Ralph dying and him getting the money. Making do is not my way, he says.
His refusal locks him into this place he claims to hate, but it's necessary for his plan. Underscores that single-minded goal, that entitlement.
Catherine pleads with him for peace, begs him to leave her alone. He goes, but his presence just looms. It's a constant threat.
And her internal turmoil just skyrockets. She's standing in that ruined garden, hoping for spring, wishing Antonio was gone, regretting ever starting this whole thing.
She regrets seeing Ralph's eyes, regrets hearing those poet's words Ralph quoted. Those who love shall be made invincible. She feels the exact opposite, not invincible, but like a new wound, totally vulnerable.
That knot in her stomach is the fear Antonio's right, Ralph will find out. Her new life, her hidden past. It's all a secret safe except for Antonio. He's the living proof of her scheme, her vulnerability. His presence makes the past dangerously present. Okay, spring is approaching, the wind's getting warmer, Ralph working on his car, teaching Antonio to drive, and this mundane activity, the car, it actually brings him a bit of peace. They try to talk.
It's this brief, fragile moment, isn't it? Potential connection between father and son, cutting through years of silence and rage with this shared activity.
And Ralph expresses this profound regret to Antonio, acknowledges it was an awful thing he did, letting Antonio be tortured, meaning by his abandonment, by Amelia's actions.
And he reveals his deep personal reason for marrying Catherine in the first place. He wanted Antonio to come home. He thought having a wife, a home, might help. He was lonely, unloved, sad, needed a companion.
Tells Antonio, you don't know what happens to a life without love. That vulnerability, that confession, it's such a powerful insight into the emptiness that drove Ralph to gamble on a stranger.
Antonio, though, he's just consumed by despair. Can't accept it. Never thought he could have a wonderful life. Those ideas were just phantoms. Love is gone, replaced by this chilling phrase, the sexual attraction of tragedy.
He mourns everything, his life, childhood, Ralph's kindness now, his mother's beauty, feels there's no home for him anywhere. His identity is so tied up in the trauma and rage, he just can't accept kindness or a different path.
That internal conflict, Truitt versus Moretti as his father, it persists. He sees Ralph as this stranger whose death he's lived for. He hates Ralph's kind tones because they contradict the lifelong story he's told himself about the cruel, abandoning father.
And Catherine, by this point, she's changed in ways Antonio just can't grasp. She's become someone unknown to him.
But her skin, he feels, still holds the memory of who she was to him, something he couldn't let go. It highlights his possessiveness, his inability to accept her transformation or her connection with Ralph. He still sees her as part of his past, his plan, his desire.
Which leads directly to the violent climax. Antonio finds Catherine sewing that blue dress, the one she was finishing when he first arrived back in Wisconsin. He sits at her feet like a dog.
Touches the fabric, feels electrified. He desperately needs her to want him, needs her not to have left him emotionally, not to have slept with Ralph. He projects all his own conflicts onto her, sees her as his lover, his childhood desire, a whore all at once.
The assault is sudden, brutal, tears his own shirt, she scratches him, draws blood, screams for Mrs. Larson.
He covers her mouth, lifts her skirt, tears her clothes. His hand moves towards her sex, kisses her, violates her mouth, bites her lips. She twists, soundless.
And underneath the violence, his desperate need. He needs her to want him. It's not about connection, it's this violent attempt to force her back into the role he needs her to play.
Then Antonio just breaks down, crying, bleeding from his shoulders, his back, howling for everything that's lost. And in that broken moment, the core of his rage pours out, "He killed my mother! I saw it!"
This is it. The traumatic memory or belief that's driven him for 20 years convinced Ralph murdered Amelia.
And Catherine's response. It's blunt truth, her voice hard, filled with it. "He didn't, Antonio. That never happened."
Wow. In the face of his raw, trauma-fueled accusation, Catherine, the master liar, delivers this simple, factual truth that just shatters his whole foundation.
Ralph hears the screams, comes running, fights Antonio down the meadow. Antonio fights back wildly, sticks, rocks, hurting Ralph.
And Ralph fights back with his fist, but the source says he's beating back more than just Antonio. He's beating back the memories his wife, his child, his own failures, his mother's needle. It's years of rage and pain finally unleashed.
Catherine and Mrs. Larson watch from the terrace. Catherine's afraid to interfere, feels like the end is already decided, somehow inevitable.
The fight ends at the pond. Ralph stops, bleeding, hands broken. His anger is finally spent, and a profound realization hits him.
Living is more beautiful than dead. Something must be saved. He knows Antonio will go away, die alone. There will be no corpse today.
It's Ralph choosing life, choosing preservation, even after his son's violence. He decides he'll mourn Antonio but secretly love him, send him money, chooses this path of secret, painful love over finality, and the source implies Antonio drowns then, maybe in despair, maybe in the struggle near the pond.
After Antonio's death, Catherine wears that blue dress. A whole life, her connection to Antonio, the scheme he represented, it's dead to her now. Ralph is silent, grieving. They eat together, but there's no talk, no reading, no sex.
She weeps in her room for all she lost, but her grief has shifted, hasn't it?
It has. She realizes she truly had nothing to hold on to until Ralph. She brought him harm, agreed to kill him without really grasping the reality of his death.
And crucially, she agreed to marry him without realizing the simple pleasure of marriage itself, of caring for someone, carrying the thought of someone else. She's sad she won't see him age. This is her transformation, right? The scheme collapsed, but she found unexpected value in the actual reality of her life with Ralph.
And she has this vision. The secret garden restored. Perfect, her glory, filling the house with flowers, perfuming their days, telling Ralph the histories of the plants, taking bouquets to town.
This vision of the restored garden, her masterpiece, it represents this potential future, doesn't it? Built on beauty, order, creation, shared life with Ralph. Such a contrast to her past and the violent scheme with Antonio.
But the vision just vanishes. Abruptly, she hears her name, Catherine, Truitt standing on the steps, in his black suit from the funeral. She turns away, and the garden is gone. Back to being a ruin, old flowers, bare branches, thorns.
The garden state mirrors her reality. Still a ruin, reflecting the consequences, waiting, like her, for spring. She feels like a simple, honest woman in the ruin of a late winter garden.
Ralph calls her name again. She turns, afraid of him now. Afraid of his anger, his pain, his disapproval, her own shame. Her life feels wasted, the new idea ruined. Antonio's dead. Such things happen, the source says, with this brutal simplicity.
The weight of it all just hangs there. Antonio's death feels almost inevitable, the outcome of these damaged lives colliding.
And then, the final stunning revelation from Ralph, shattering all Catherine's assumptions about him. I knew. I always knew.
He knew. He knew her history, knew she wasn't the woman in the picture, knew about the lies, all along.
All along. It's not just a plot twist. It completely reframes their whole relationship. Ralph wasn't a sentimental fool. He entered this knowing about the deception, which suggests his need for connection, or for his son, was so immense he was willing to accept the lie.
Faced with that unveiled truth, Catherine responds with one last lie, but maybe one that holds a fragile potential for a new future.
We're going to have a child.
Ralph's reaction is just stillness. Then he reaches out his arm. The lights come on in the house, like warmth, maybe hope returning, and he says, well then, you'd better come in the house.
She takes one last look at the garden. The air turns cold, but it's a springtime kind of cold, without the blizzard's threat, almost dark. Her final thoughts in the excerpt. Things wait. Not everything dies. Living takes time.
She walks towards that golden house and takes his outstretched hand. So what does this all mean, this deep dive into just excerpts from A Reliable Wife? It takes us through these incredible layers of deception, loss, desire, and really unexpected connection.
Yeah, we've seen characters totally driven by the weight of their pasts. Ralph's childhood trauma, his grief, Antonio's consuming rage and sense of abandonment.
Driven by schemes for love and money, Catherine's initial plan, Antonio's whole motivation, really, and just by that desperate search for a place to belong or maybe just a person to hold on to. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The reveals aren't just plot points, they offer these deep insights, don't they? Ralph knew Catherine's history all along. What does that tell you about how far people might go for connection, or how relationships can somehow endure even when they're built on known lies?
And Catherine. She finds unexpected pleasure and meaning, not in the grand scheme, not in the passionate affair with Antonio, but in the simple acts of care, the structure of a conventional marriage with Ralph. Her desire shifts,
Yeah.
right, from escape and getting something to creation and belonging, symbolized by that garden vision.
And Antonio's rage, it's devastatingly real, leads to tragedy, but ultimately it's self-destructive. His inability to let go of his trauma, even when Ralph offers a kind of reconciliation, it costs him everything.
Consider this, though. The story ends with a huge secret laid bare. Ralph knew, and the introduction of potential new life with his child. A relationship that started with a coded ad, built on deceit and tragedy. It seems to find this flicker of hope, or at least a really complicated path forward.
Which raises that important question. In a world full of hidden pasts, unpredictable turns, what truly makes a relationship reliable? Is it shared truth? Or is it maybe a shared need, something that allows people to endure even the deceptions they know about? And can you ever truly escape who you were, or the consequences of your actions? Or do they just reshape the garden you inherit? Something to think about long after this deep dive ends.